Like I said,
hey
Milestone
everyone, Mark
Media
here,
is
just
brought
outside
to
radio
you,
show. Welcome
really finding passion to
issue
this
of the comic. That's right, just
show.
outside radio
Comic
show
Rack.
is branching out. Is going to other
Like I
realms
said,
of sports and
Milestone Media.
We're going to start it off right here with the Comic
Universe
Rack
Returns.
comics. We talked about it on the show.
I guess February of this year.
Passion of mine.
They started off with a
over
one
30 years
shot.
probably. That would be. And something that I'm really excited to talk about. And it's not just going to be comic books per se, it's going to be the whole realm of
exercise
pop
issue
culture
that
with,
featured
comics and
the major heroes
and had Loki,
Milestone, that being Hardware and Static, I Know Rocket.
this week.
The first solo issue to drop after that, definitely Milestone.
Hey everyone, Mark here, just about outside radio show, welcoming you to the debut issue of the Comic Rack. That's right, just about outside radio show is branching out, is going into other realms other than sports, and we're going to start it off right here with the Comic Rack. Comics, we've talked about it on the show. It's been a passion of mine for over 30 years probably. And something that I'm really excited to talk about. And it's not just going to be comic books per se. It's going to be the whole realm of pop culture with comics and movies and TV shows. We've had Loki that just wrapped up. Shang-Chi getting ready to drop this week. And more. But, I've wanted to do this for a while now. Just About Outside Radio Show has given me the confidence and the ability to. So might as well pull that trigger, right? Like I said, this is debut issue number 1, collector's edition, whatever you want to call it. That's what we are right now. So might as well get into the nuts and bolts of it. Why the Comic Rack? Why now? Why you? Why me? And before we really get into all that stuff, I first want to say, huge many thanks to my partner, Keisha. Keisha, you are wonderful. You're the best. You're supportive. And I couldn't ask for a better co-host, producer, partner in general for everything about Jabbo. Jabbo Presents the Comic Rack is, I think, a realization of what we started out a little over 2 years ago when we took ownership of the show and went out on our own. It's that next evolution of what we started, and I may be right here in front of the camera, which isn't exactly where I'm always most comfortable. You're the more charismatic of us, but it's definitely an adventure and a challenge that I crave and look forward to exploring further. Also I wanted to give a few thanks out there for the nerd community, as it's called, the geek community, whatever you want to call it. If you follow me on Facebook, my personal page, you'd know that I'm a big fan of the Den of Nerds Live, or the Den of Nerds on YouTube. Josh Lucas is a phenomenal host. He's such an intelligent guy too, that has so much other than what you see on screen going on, that he has his hands in, that he is very passionate about and wants to get going, and that creative process and seeing the excitement that he brings to the camera and everything. It inspired me. It made me want to do more for myself, if you will. And also a huge shout out to Star Wars Santa. If you're not familiar with Star Wars Santa, he has a Star Wars channel on YouTube that such great content, great community where everyone is cool with each other, and that's what I like about these two channels, is even though there's people that you may disagree with about politics or philosophy or whatever, they're great communities. People get along, and that's something that we like to think that we have at Just About Outside Radio Show. And Santa also shows that the older folks got it and they can do this streaming stuff too. So again, huge shout out of appreciation to Star Wars Santa, Josh Lucas at Den of Nerds. So why me? Like I said, 30 years I've been a comic book aficionado, if you will. I started out with, I think as a lot of kids will, I'd get a comic book here and there. Like 7 years old, I wasn't reading every single month, every single story. But probably when I was like, 12, 13, something like that, I started getting more and more G.I. Joe comic books. G.I. Joe was like the biggest thing to me. If you're a kid growing up in the 80s, it was G.I. Joe and it was Transformers. Those were the two biggest toy lines. And if you didn't collect both, you definitely collected one of them. And G.I. Joe was the big one for me. And I remember, I remembered picking up these G.I. Joe comic books when I was younger. And I went out and I think I saw them like at a newsstand or a grocery store or something like that. So I picked them up, and the stories were great, phenomenal. And I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna see if I can find the next one. And a few weeks later, a month later, whatever, I'd see the next issue, and picked it up and read it, and that one was phenomenal too. So then I started researching more about comic books. Like to me at that point, it had just been the thing that you saw at the drugstore or at the grocery store. I had no idea that a direct market even existed for comic books, and this is like late 80s, early 90s. And then I found out about a local comic book shop that was not too far from where I lived. It was my hometown, Tucson, Arizona. And excuse me a moment because I know this TV is going to time out. Technology. So anyway, I found out about a local comic book shop, and I'll still remember the name, Dimension X, very 90s name, and went and found it. And about the time that I really was starting to want to get into other comic books was around 92, the death of Superman. Like I had been reading G.I. Joe monthly. I'd found the comic book shop, and after G.I. Joe, my next book was Iron Man. I started picking up Iron Man because I remembered the character from cartoons and toys and everything. And I always liked like sci-fi and that kind of thing, and the character spoke to me. And interestingly, when I started picking that up, Tony Stark was not Iron Man. It was one of the multiple times that Tony Stark had died and James Rhodey, had become the Iron Man. So that was kind of my first major introduction to Iron Man. I knew who Tony Stark was, but when I started getting into the stories, that's when Rhodey was the Iron Man. So I found out, comic books come out every Wednesday. So I started going to my comic book shop every Wednesday. And then Death of Superman was coming up. So, of course, everyone's going crazy about that. And I started picking up a little bit more Superman stuff leading into the death. And around that same time, DC also had another phenomenal story. This is probably my favorite Batman story, which was the original Nightfall. The introduction of Bane. Well, Bane had been introduced a little while before, but this is when he really tore up Batman, broke his back. A new Batman came in, Azrael. And these were the stories that were really speaking to me, really grabbing me at the time. And the early 90s was kind of a crazy time with comics, and at that same time, Image Comics had been founded. So I found out about Spawn and the Savage Dragon, which both comics were great, but I liked the Savage Dragon a whole lot more back then. Eric Larson's storytelling was phenomenal. And so this was kind of my introduction really into, from comics novice to diehard, everyday, every week comic book reader. And there was various times between then and now that I read more Marvel stuff or more DC stuff. Didn't like the story, liked the story. I think every comic book reader goes through it. finds the indie comic creators and the off studios that aren't the big two. So that's kind of my journey through comics, the early days, if you will. That's how I got into comic books, and that's what sparked a passion, I guess. But one of the reasons that we're here today in front of this camera, and I'm talking to a camera, which is really, it's been a while since we did this in a studio. We've been doing Jabbo on the phone at home. I have my home set up as a studio. You can tell by this TV. So it's kind of odd being in front of the camera, just like, there's a door behind the camera, and I'm just looking at the camera. Kind of how I got to be in this position now was I've still kept up with comics. There's been times I dropped reading the X-Men. I wasn't a big fan of the most recent Powers of X, House of X stuff. Kind of dropped off on Spider-Man 2, here and there, but I'll keep up with the stories. And probably, a lot of times throughout the years, there's been talk about resurrecting Milestone Comics, Milestone Media. Milestone was introduced, I think, 1992, somewhere around there, around that same time as the big death of Superman and everything. And it was the first universe of comics to feature predominantly heroes of color. And they were published through DC, which they still publish them today. And I thought it was an interesting concept, so I checked it out. I've always been more of a story person, so I needed the story to speak to me, and it did. I was a huge fan of Icon and Rocket back in the day. That is, bar none, to me, the best Milestone Media book, period. Blood Syndicate, I didn't actually read when it first came out, and then during a crossover I read it, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So I went back and tracked down the old copies. You had Static. A lot of people know it as Static Shock from the cartoon. And Static's probably been their biggest hero, and his story's been pretty well told throughout the years. And then another Milestone character is Hardware. And I'll get out into these characters a little bit later, but the announcement was made that they were coming back, which it's happened throughout the years several times, but then finally 2021, Milestone does come back. They go digital first, I believe, was their deal with DC, so they released them digitally, and then like a month later they go to the comic book rack. Not the comic rack, but at store shelves and everything. And I was pumped, I was excited, and it really, it wasn't necessarily nostalgia. It was seeing these books that I thought were very well done, and reading them, and there's just something about them that I was like, I would love to share this with fellow geeks, nerds, whatever you call yourself, comic book readers. It's the kind of thing, like, I could remember being at a comic book shop on a Wednesday and just chatting with other readers as they came in. You got to see faces and everything, and I think in the digital age that's a little bit lost. People don't necessarily go to the comic book shop on Wednesday now. So it's something that I thought back in the day this would have been like discussed, at the cash register, at the tables and everything. So that's what brought us to the table. That's what brought us to the comic rack, presented by Just About Outside Radio Show. So like I said, Milestone Media is what brought me to really finding the passion to do this show, the Comic Rack. Like I said, the Milestone Media universe returned, I guess February of this year. They started off with a one-shot, and that would be Milestone Returns. It was a extra-sized issue that featured the major heroes of Milestone, that being Hardware, Static, Icon, and Rocket. The first solo issue to drop after that, definitely Milestone's biggest star, I guess, the most visible, and that would be Static Shock. Both issues were, like I said, this is the thing that put enough of a kick in my ass to do this. Am I making a fool out of myself? I don't know. You'll be the judge of that. Maybe I sound like a crazy man just ranting at a camera. Who knows? But the Milestone Returns book was phenomenal. It highlighted all the major characters, reintroduced them, kind of gave you a little taste of what was going on, but not quite like telling you their entire stories, because it was a lot to tell. Static was a great book. What I really liked about these Milestone books is that they really captured the stories of their original incarnations from the 90s. They told a story that had been told before, but they told it in a fresh, new way, expanding on it with, I guess, modern sensibilities. And they really expanded on these origin stories. They were familiar, but they were also new. Static. I don't know where I got that from. Static. I could see where some people might not be okay with it. I'm not going to try to get political here, but if you're familiar with the original Milestone Media, the Dakotaverse as they call it, because the city is called Dakota, there's a riot and an incident called the Big Bang, where this experimental substance is used to disperse the riot. And Milestone Returns tells that story in a modern setting. And Virgil Hawkins is at that riot, but in the modern telling, it's actually a Black Lives Matter rally. There's people that want to discount media that portrays this stuff just because of the fact that it exists in that media. I'm a storytelling person. If a story is told and it's told right, it shouldn't matter what the backdrop is, what the setting is, what the political issue that is being portrayed is. If the story is done right, that's what matters. For those people that don't like woke media, if you read this and you don't like it because of it, you're going out of your way to not like it. That's as simple as I can say it. The storytelling is phenomenal. The creators of the book, Reggie Hudlin, he told a story. He took the old story and made it new, and I cannot say that enough. I actually posted about it on my Facebook page, and Reggie Hudlin, he responded and he reposted my review of Static. That's the second time I did that. And I'm eternally grateful to Milestone and Reggie for doing that. That's something they didn't have to do. He commented on if you don't know who Reggie Hudlin is, he's a massive name in the entertainment industry. He's done comics before. He's written Black Panther. This man was former head, CEO, president, or whatever of BET Television. I mean, to say that the guy has seen things and done things, that's no small statement. And to get that acknowledgement on my simple praise of his book, felt really good. And it wasn't lip service. Like, Static told a phenomenal story. But like I said at the beginning of the show, when I was a young comic book reader, first getting into it, and Milestone first came out, my absolute favorite, Icon and Rocket. This book lived up to expectations. Icon, for all intents and purposes, his comparisons would be to Superman. He's an alien from another planet, and the way that they tell the story, and you're gonna hear this a lot, and expand on it. I remember reading Icon when it first came out and thinking, like, the origin was pretty amazing and was told perfectly, and the fact that they could improve upon that today, that is mind-blowing. But they did. He lands in mid-1800s plantation. He's found by a slave, and the way his DNA works is he can shapeshift or what have you to adapt to the DNA of the host planet of whatever creature he comes into contact with. So if a deer had touched him, I guess, or his spaceship, I guess he could have assimilated to a deer, but it happened to be this woman, and she took him in as her own child, because when he transformed to our DNA, he was literally a baby. Very similar to the Superman origin, coming out of the spaceship as a baby, but with that extra 100 of years of experience on top of Superman. He lived through slavery, he lived through reparations, fell in love. He didn't age, so he had to watch his love age and die, and it's been pretty powerful stuff. But the story of Icon is told so phenomenally well, and what I always loved about the original Milestone, and I'm really hoping this Milestone is able to capture it as we move on with the newer books. The newer books all are 6 issues per story, I guess, per miniseries. So Icon and Rocket will have 6 issues. Static will have 6 issues. And then they'll do more miniseries following that, I'm sure, depending on sales and everything. But the thing I really look forward to in Icon and Rocket's story is the story of Rocket, because even though I was this huge Icon fan, I liked Rocket just that much more. I was a teenager at the time, and the fact that she's a teenager probably spoke to me a whole lot more back then. But she took this old crusty dude that she just happened to meet in a most mysterious circumstance, or not mysterious, but the oddest circumstance, breaking into his house. You got to read the story. But she saw what he could do, and she was so inspired that she pushed him to become a hero. I will say the one gripe that I have with the current Icon that I liked the original more was the way that she put his costume together. She sketches it out and has plans and everything, but because she doesn't come from money like he does, she thinks about using the things that surrounds her, and one of those things, in the original, they used a shower curtain as his cape. and I think a shower curtain hoop as to fasten it. I don't know why I always liked that. It was just the creativity. They don't go that route this time, probably for the best. Have a more professional or sturdier costume. You can't go running around with a shower curtain on your back. But I'm so excited to see where they take Rocket. Her story back then was some of the most cutting edge storytelling at that time. They addressed teen pregnancy. They, like I said, she had broken into his house, so they took these serious issues and they went head forward into them to address them. And I'll be excited to see where they take that. And the final book in the Milestone Resurrection, Hardware. Now, if you think back to the beginning of the show, when I first got into comic books, after G.I. Joe was Iron Man. And I remember when the original Milestone came out, this was like the book I was looking forward to the most. It's also the book that disappointed me the most back then, the original incarnation. It's not that the book was bad, it just didn't speak to me. Curtis Metcalf, he is kind of a prodigy, taken in by, mentored by this really rich dude that, of course, is like the bad guy and uses him. He's actually the one that created the experimental serum that was used in the Big Bang. So he's got that, monkey on his back that he has to deal with. I'm not going to say this new incarnation of Hardware is bad. It's not. It just didn't grab me again. And I tried not to go into it with expectations this time. I really did. But like I said, it wasn't bad. It just didn't grab me. I'm going to pick up every issue and give it a chance. The original incarnation of Hardware, I didn't pick up every issue. I would see him in crossovers and whatnot, and there was times that the character did stuff that I liked, and I think as he grew and progressed and evolved, such as these armored heroes do, it started clicking with me more, and I liked the evolved version more than the original. And maybe we'll see that happen now. One thing that, while I do enjoy Milestone retelling the original origins and staying very, very true, I hope they don't try to rehash everything the original Milestone did. Because as it was great, I've read those books. Stay true to the origin, Icon being an alien, landing in slavery times, Hardware, child prodigy, mentored by the villain. Just those things are okay, but tell me something new. Tell me something that hasn't been done before. If they see villains from the original run, let those be new stories. Don't try to tell the story that had been done before. But one thing that is missing from Milestone that a lot of people have noticed, that have commented on, is one of the biggest books back then, I mentioned him earlier, was Blood Syndicate. And for some reason, Milestone chose not to release this book, chose not to resurrect it. That's their prerogative. That's what they do. But I gotta say, I was not big on Blood Syndicate when it first came out. I picked it up during probably like a crossover or something like that, and the characters then blew me away. And I went back and picked up all the issues and got caught up. and it was one of the most impassioned books that the old Milestone put out. And I can understand where they don't want to necessarily glorify gang culture, whatever their reason for not putting it out, they're entitled to that. But that's the one book that I think, if they could capture its spirit and tell it in a new way, that it would be important to bring out and do. It's it is missed, and I hope that those characters find a way into the new Milestone, because it is great storytelling. Everything about the original Milestone was centered around great storytelling. Is it worth picking up? I'm saying yes. Starting next episode, I'm going to be introducing the comic rack point system. I'm going to review older issues of stuff, story runs, and it'll be like a rating system with so many comic racks out of 5 for what I think of the story. That's going to do it for us here at the comic rack. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Like I said at the beginning, many thanks to Keisha for being so supportive as we expand the Just a Bit Outside radio show brand. We're both so excited, and I do promise I'm going to upgrade things here. I hadn't planned on shooting with this white background on me on the wall. The TV was kind of a last minute thought, so I put this up, and just like the original Just a Bit Outside radio show, we will evolve. We will do things, always open to suggestions, criticisms, whatever you think can help improve. I do want to also thank the people that have reached out. There's people that want to work with us and contribute to the show, and I appreciate that so much. It's something that I will be talking with you all about. Get this issue posted and out there in the in the world, and get a couple more issues under our belt, and then we'll be ready to rock. And I do have to say, with Jabbo, I am far more comfortable doing streaming. This has been quite the process of putting this together. So maybe not yet, but the comic rack will stream eventually. So be on the lookout for that. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. Mark from the comic rack. Give the rack a spin. Grab something, see what interests you, and give a comic a read.